One, the whisper behind the door. There's something about old houses at night, the way they breathe, the way they creak like they're remembering things they shouldn't. Some doors are better left closed, but sometimes the silence behind them starts to whisper first. They thought they were alone, until the darkness whispered their name. It was one of those nights when silence didn't feel peaceful, when even the stillness seemed to hum with something unseen, something that waited. The air was thick and heavy, the kind of still air that pressed against the walls of the old house, making the woods sigh, like it had memories too heavy to carry. The rain had stopped hours ago, but the roof still dripped lazily, one drop at a time, each sound echoing through the narrow hallway that led to the only bedroom on the second floor. They had moved into that house just a few weeks earlier, looking for a quiet place away from the noise of the city and the chaos of people. It seemed perfect at first, a place surrounded by trees with the smell of damp soil and pine floating through the cracked windows. But peace has a strange way of showing its other face when night falls. The first night they heard it, they thought it was the wind, just a faint whisper like air slipping through the space beneath the door. It came at 2 a.m., a slow, dragging sound that made them open their eyes and stare into the dark. The whisper was so soft it almost blended with the rhythm of the dripping roof, but it was there, distinct, deliberate, as if someone was standing right behind the door, waiting for a response. They held their breath, heart thudding, trying to convince themselves it was nothing, just the old house settling. But then the sound came again, a whisper, lower this time, almost tender, almost knowing. It wasn't words, not at first, just the sound of someone breathing too close, too intentional. They turned on the lamp beside the bed, but the light did nothing to calm the unease. It only made the corners of the room seem deeper, as if the shadows were pulling away from the glow, hiding something. The next morning they laughed it off. Everyone hears strange things in old houses, right? It's just the pipes, the wood, maybe a stray animal outside. They made breakfast, walked through the house, checked the locks, everything normal. But that night the same thing happened. The same time, the same whisper, only this time it spoke. It said something faint, something that made their stomach twist, not because it was loud, but because it was too gentle, too personal. It said, "I'm still here." They sat up in bed, eyes wide, pulse racing. The voice wasn't angry. It wasn't even frightening in tone. It was calm, patient, almost familiar, and that made it worse. They stared at the door, waiting to hear footsteps, a shadow, something, but nothing came. Just the whisper, and then silence so deep it felt alive. Sleep never came after that. They stayed awake until dawn, the light creeping through the blinds like a slow rescue. In the daylight, the house looked normal again, old but harmless. They told themselves maybe it was the mind replaying dreams, maybe stress, but deep down they knew what they heard wasn't part of any dream. Days passed quietly, but nights grew heavier. The third night, the whisper started earlier, around 1:30, and it wasn't behind the door anymore. It was closer. They could hear it moving, shifting, the sound of soft footsteps brushing against the wooden floor, the faint creak of a board that always gave away where someone stood. They sat frozen, unable to move, feeling the weight of being watched without seeing the watcher. Then came a slow tap against the door, not loud but steady, like someone testing the distance between sound and fear. Tap, pause, tap. Each one perfectly spaced, like a heartbeat that didn't belong to them. And then faintly the whisper again. "Don't open it." The words made no sense, but somehow they carried meaning, a warning dressed as comfort. They whispered back before they even realized it. "Why not?" The answer came faster this time, sharper. "Because it's not me." The silence that followed pressed against their chest so hard they could barely breathe. They wanted to run, to throw open the door, to see who or what was behind it, but something deep inside told them not to. The air on the other side felt wrong, too still, too waiting, so they stayed there until dawn again, shaking, listening to the sound of the roof dripping and the faint rhythm of something pacing outside their room. By the fourth night, exhaustion had replaced fear. They decided to sleep with the light on, the lamp's dull yellow glow spilling across the floor. It didn't help. At 2 o'clock, the bulb flickered, hummed, and went out. The darkness felt instant thick, and then the whisper came again, not from the door this time, but from beside the bed. "You shouldn't have stayed." They gasped, scrambling for the lamp, knocking it over. Their hands shook as they turned it on, light flooding the room. Empty, still, nothing there. But on the floor, near the door, the wood was damp, as if something had been standing there dripping. They followed the wet footprints down the hall, but they stopped halfway, just vanished, no source, no puddle, nothing. For the first time they felt the urge to leave the house, but something in the air, something about the whisper made them feel like leaving would make it follow. So they stayed. The next day they called a neighbor, someone who'd lived in the area for years, and asked casually about the house. The neighbor went quiet for a moment, then said softly, "That place hasn't had anyone last more than a month." When asked why, the neighbor said only this: "Because the house doesn't like to be alone." That night, they locked the door, every window, every latch, sat in bed clutching their blanket, heart pounding. The whisper didn't come at 2. It came earlier. This time it wasn't just a whisper. It was a sound, a deep exhale like someone right behind the wall breathing in sync with them. And then the voice said something that froze their blood cold. "I know you can hear me now." It wasn't angry, just certain. The kind of voice that knows you, that has been waiting. They covered their ears, whispered prayers, tried to drown it out. But the sound slipped through every crack, every space, soft and patient. Hours passed before it stopped, but sleep never returned. By morning, they packed a few things, determined to leave. But as they opened the front door, a gust of air hit them. Cold, heavy, smelling faintly of damp wood and something metallic. And faintly, almost drowned by the sound of the wind, they heard it again. "Don't go." They turned back, heart slamming in their chest, but the voice wasn't inside the house this time. It came from outside, near the trees. They could see the faint outline of something pale between the branches. Too tall, too still to be human. They slammed the door shut, locked it, backed away, trembling. Days went by. They stopped sleeping entirely, moving through the house like a ghost themselves. Sometimes they'd hear the whisper in broad daylight now, faint and teasing, following them from room to room. Sometimes it sounded like it was coming from inside the walls, sometimes from behind the mirrors, sometimes right next to their ear when no one else was there. The neighbors noticed they stopped coming outside. The mail piled up. The curtains stayed drawn. One night a delivery driver came by and noticed the front door slightly open, swaying gently in the wind. He called out but got no answer. Inside the house was silent. The lights were on, but no one was there. The only thing he noticed was that every door inside the house, every single one, was closed tight except one. The bedroom door upstairs was slightly ajar, and from behind it came a faint, rhythmic sound. The driver leaned closer, his hand trembling as he whispered, "Hello?" The sound paused. Then, from behind the door, came a soft whisper, so close it felt like it came from the crack itself. "I told them not to open it." The driver stumbled back, heart racing, and ran out without looking behind. The police came later, found the house empty, no sign of struggle, no footprints, nothing missing. Just one strange thing. The door to the bedroom wouldn't close anymore. No matter how hard they tried, it stayed slightly open, as if something on the other side was holding it. The house was left abandoned after that. Locals say at night, if you walk past it, you can still hear a faint whisper from the second floor just behind the door that never shuts. No one knows whom or what it whispers now, but every once in a while, when the air is heavy and still, people walking by swear they hear it say something different, something new. I'm not alone anymore. 2. The Man in the Rearview Mirror. The road at night has its own kind of loneliness, endless miles of nothing but fog, headlights, and the hum of your own heartbeat. But sometimes, if you're unlucky, you're not as alone in the car as you think. He wasn't chasing them down the highway. He was already sitting in the back seat. The road stretched endlessly through the dark, a narrow ribbon of cracked asphalt cutting through miles of silence. The night was heavy with fog, the kind that eats the light from the headlights and makes the world outside the windshield dissolve into nothing but gray mist. The hum of the engine was the only sound, a low mechanical heartbeat that seemed to echo inside the car. They'd been driving for hours, heading somewhere they couldn't even remember why, only that they had to get there before dawn. The fuel gauge hovered near empty. The radio hissed static, and every so often the tires hit a patch of gravel that made the steering wheel twitch like something alive. It was just another long, lonely highway, until they noticed the figure in the rearview mirror. At first it was just a shape, a trick of the fog maybe, something that the tired mind invents when the road becomes too long and the night too quiet. A shadow on the back seat that shouldn't be there. They blinked, rubbed their eyes, looked again, nothing. Just the faint outline of the headrest, a jacket tossed carelessly. Nothing out of place. They told themselves it was fatigue, that driving this late always did strange things to the eyes. But 10 minutes later, when the car passed under a flickering streetlight, they saw it again, clearer this time. A silhouette sitting perfectly still in the back seat, unmoving, faceless, but unmistakably there. The light hit it for only a second before darkness swallowed it up again. But that second was enough to make their stomach twist. They glanced back, empty. The seat was bare. The air inside the car felt colder suddenly, like a draft slipping through cracks that didn't exist. Their fingers tightened on the steering wheel, knuckles pale, heartbeat quickening. They turned up the heater, wiped the sweat off their palms, and kept driving. Maybe it was a reflection. Maybe something outside. They didn't want to look again, didn't want to give the mirror the satisfaction of another glance. But the problem with fear is that it feeds on silence, and the quieter it gets, the louder your mind becomes. The next time they looked, it wasn't by choice. It was instinct and a glance, a reflex. And there he was. This time not a blur, not a shadow, a man, sitting in the middle of the back seat, head slightly tilted as if studying the driver. His face was pale, too pale, with eyes that didn't reflect the light and lips that moved slowly, whispering something that couldn't be heard. They slammed the brakes, heart thudding violently, the car skidding to the side of the road. Dust and fog swirled in front of the headlights as the car came to a halt. The back seat was empty. The engine hummed softly, mocking the silence that followed. They got out, breathing hard, checking the back seat, the trunk, even the road behind them. Nothing. Just emptiness stretching into the mist. But as they stood there, one sound cut through the still night, a slow tapping on glass. They turned sharply, flashlight trembling in their hand, and saw it. The condensation on the inside of the rear window. Someone had drawn a line through it. Not from outside, but from inside the car. A single line traced by a fingertip that wasn't theirs. They wiped it away with a shaking hand, got back into the driver's seat, locked the doors, and started driving again. The fog thickened as if trying to swallow the car whole. The radio crackled faintly, catching bits of strange whispers through the static. Words that faded before they could be understood. Then the headlights flickered. Once, twice. The engine stuttered and everything went black. The car rolled to a stop in the middle of the road, the world swallowed by darkness. They sat there, breathing fast, trying not to move, listening. Then came the sound again, breathing, slow, heavy, from the back seat. They didn't look this time. They couldn't. They just reached for the ignition, turned the key with trembling hands. The car coughed, sputtered, came back to life, headlights flaring weakly against the fog. They drove faster now, eyes fixed on the road, refusing to look in the mirror, but the whisper was getting louder. It wasn't just breathing anymore. It was words muffled, almost amused. They couldn't make them out, but the tone was clear. It was talking to them. The road twisted sharply, and they almost missed the turn. Gravel crunched beneath the tires. The car swerved, and for a second, in the mirror's edge, they saw it again. The man's reflection smiling. Not a normal smile, but one too wide, too knowing, stretching across a face that looked wrong, like it was remembering something terrible. They slammed the mirror upward, tilting it away so it faced the ceiling. They didn't want to see it anymore. But that didn't help, because now the whisper came from the front seat, just beside their ear. They screamed, swerved again, the car bouncing off the edge of the road before stabilizing. The sound vanished. The mirror hung crooked, reflecting nothing but the dim interior light and the driver's trembling hands. The rest of the drive felt endless. Every sound, the engine, the tires, even the beating of their heart, felt like it could mask another sound, something waiting beneath it. By the time they reached the next town, the sky had started to pale. They pulled into a gas station, stepped out on shaky legs, and walked straight inside to the restroom. Their face in the mirror looked unfamiliar, pale, hollow-eyed. They splashed water, breathed, told themselves it was all in their head. When they returned to the car, dawn had broken and the fog had thinned. For the first time all night, they felt a flicker of calm. They got in, started the engine, adjusted the rearview mirror back into place, and Yankin froze. There was something written on the glass, faintly traced in condensation. 3 words. You looked back. Their hands shook as they wiped it away, but it didn't smudge. It was written from the inside, just like before. They stumbled out of the car, heart hammering, scanning the empty road. No one there. Not a single sign of movement. But when they leaned down to look under the car, they noticed something else. Wet footprints. Bare human footprints leading from the passenger side door around to the back seat. They backed away slowly, eyes wide, breathing sharp. The gas station attendant stepped outside then, calling out to ask if everything was all right. They nodded weakly, got back in the car, locked the doors again, and drove off without a word. They told themselves they'd throw the mirror out, maybe get rid of the car entirely. But the farther they drove, the more the guilt crept in. They'd left the gas station without saying what they saw, without warning anyone. And when they finally glanced up again, instinctively there he was, clearer than ever before. The man in the back seat, head low, eyes black void, staring straight ahead. But this time his lips moved slow enough for them to understand. Almost home. The road behind them stretched empty, but they could feel the weight of his gaze pressing forward. The rearview mirror began to shake slightly, vibrating against the glass until a crack split across it like a spider web. The reflection fractured, distorting both their faces, the living and the dead, until they seemed to merge. Then the car veered off the road, tires screeching, metal grinding against dirt and stone before crashing into a ditch. Silence. For a moment, there was nothing but the hiss of steam and the faint creak of metal. The highway remained empty, the fog rolling back slowly to reveal the wreck. The car crumpled, the windshield shattered, but no one inside. When rescue arrived hours later, they found the driver's seat empty, the door still locked from the inside. The only clue was the rearview mirror, hanging by a single wire, its surface fogged over, and when one of the rescuers wiped it with his glove, his breath caught. Written faintly, almost invisible unless you looked close, were 4 words. "He's in your mirror." The rescuer stepped back, heart pounding, and tossed the mirror aside. But that night, when he got home and looked into his own bathroom mirror, he swore he saw a pale face behind his shoulder, watching, smiling faintly, just before the light flickered and went out. The phone that called itself. Phones connect us, voices, faces, lives. But what if one night your phone rings, and it's your own number on the screen? Who's calling? And how do they know everything you're about to say? They answered a call from themselves, and something on the other end never hung up. The rain had been falling for hours, drumming against the windows with the steady rhythm of something too tired to stop. The streets were empty, slick with reflections of flickering streetlights that made everything look slightly out of place, like the world itself was a broken film reel stuck between frames. Inside the small apartment, the air was heavy and damp, filled with the faint hum of old electricity and the occasional sigh of the pipes. It was almost midnight, the hour when everything goes quiet enough for thoughts to sound louder than they should. The phone sat on the counter, silent, lifeless, a simple black rectangle that had been ignored all evening. They had turned it face down after the last call, a wrong number or so they thought. Someone breathing on the other end but never saying a word. That kind of silence has weight. It sticks in the back of the mind, waiting. They tried not to think about it, tried to focus on the muted sound of the television, on the hum of the refrigerator, anything to drown out the memory of that faint, human breath. But the harder they tried, the more they noticed the house itself seemed to be listening. At 12:03, the phone lit up. It didn't ring. It didn't vibrate. The screen just turned on by itself, a faint glow cutting through the darkness of the room. The name on the screen made their stomach twist, their own number. For a second they stared at it, unblinking, heart slowly climbing up their throat. Then the light went out as if nothing had happened. They picked it up, thumb hovering over the power button, but before they could press it, it lit up again. Same number, same silent glow. The sound that followed wasn't a ringtone, but a faint, irregular pulse. One long tone, then another like a heartbeat through wires. They pressed decline, but the screen didn't respond. The light flickered, dimmed, then suddenly the call connected on its own. For a moment, there was nothing. Just the soft hum of the line, the faint hiss of static, then came the breathing. Slow, careful, deliberate. It was the same sound as before, but closer this time, like someone standing just inches from their ear. They froze, afraid to speak, afraid that if they said anything, the thing on the other side might answer. After several seconds, the call ended by itself. They dropped the phone onto the couch, heart hammering. The room felt colder and the shadows seemed to lean closer. They checked the call log, but there was nothing. No record of any incoming or outgoing call. The list was empty, as if the phone had never rung at all. They told themselves it was a glitch. Maybe water damage, maybe just a bad dream playing tricks on tired senses. But deep down, something didn't feel right. The phone buzzed again at 12:09. The same number. Their number. They didn't touch it this time. They just watched as the light blinked softly, pulsing like a slow breath. After a few rings, it stopped. Relief washed over for a moment, but then another sound broke through the quiet, the faint vibration of another phone. Not theirs. It came from somewhere else in the apartment. The sound echoed softly through the hallway, a low mechanical buzz, steady and patient. They followed it, each step heavier than the last, until it led to the bedroom. On the nightstand sat another phone. Identical to theirs, same case, same cracks in the screen. It shouldn't have been there. They hadn't owned two phones, hadn't left one lying around. But there it was, ringing softly, the screen glowing with a familiar number, their own. Their trembling hand reached out, hesitated, then picked it up. The screen went black the instant their skin touched it. They stood frozen in the dim light, the hum of silence pressing hard against their chest. Then from the living room, their original phone lit up again. This time, the call wasn't from their number. It was from unknown. The tone was sharper, more distorted, like the sound was being dragged through static. They answered, voice shaking, whispering, "Hello?" For a moment, nothing. Then faintly, their own voice echoed back. Not quite right, and slower, heavier, almost like a recording played backward. The sound made their skin crawl. The voice repeated something over and over, but it was hard to make out. Then it became clear. "Pick it up." The call ended. They looked down at the identical phone still in their hand. The screen was on again now, and on it a single message. "I'm outside." They turned toward the window, every muscle locked in place. The rain blurred everything, but through the glass, faintly illuminated by a flickering streetlight, was a figure standing across the road. No umbrella, no movement, just standing, staring up. The phone buzzed again. They looked down, video call. Same unknown number. Against every instinct, they accepted it. The screen filled with static, then cleared just enough to show the faint outline of a room. Their room. The camera was facing them from somewhere inside the apartment. They turned slowly, scanning the shadows. The air felt thicker now, like the walls themselves were breathing. The screen flickered, and for a second they saw something behind them. A shape, tall, unmoving, right by the doorway. They spun around, but the space was empty. The call cut off. The lights flickered once, twice, and then went out completely, leaving only the pale glow of the phone screen. In the dark they could hear it, footsteps soft and deliberate moving closer. They backed into the corner, clutching the phone like a lifeline. The footsteps stopped just a few feet away, followed by that same slow, deliberate breathing. Then the phone in their hand vibrated again, displaying a new message. "Look behind you." They couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Every instinct screamed not to turn around. The sound of breathing grew louder, almost brushing against the back of their neck. Finally, trembling, they lifted the phone and switched to the front camera, using the screen as a mirror. The image was grainy, flickering in and out, but in the reflection behind their shoulder something was there. A pale face, eyes black, mouth slightly open as if whispering. The camera glitched violently, the image stretching and twisting, and then the screen went black. The room was silent again. They waited, barely breathing, listening. Nothing. Slowly, they lowered the phone and turned, but there was no one. Just the open door leading into the hall. They ran. Down the hall, through the living room, toward the front door. Locked. The deadbolt wouldn't budge. They pulled harder, the metal rattling in its frame when behind them came a faint, familiar sound. The phone on the couch started ringing again, slowly, mechanically. This time the screen showed something new, a video playing automatically. It showed them, standing at the door pulling the handle exactly as they were doing right now. The angle was from behind. They turned again, heart pounding so violently it hurt, but no one was there. The phone kept playing, showing them turning just like this, frame by frame, delayed by seconds. And then the version on the screen smiled. It was wrong. The mouth twisting wider, the eyes darkening, the smile stretching until it didn't look human. The video cut to black. The phone fell silent. They backed away, shaking, whispering to themselves that it couldn't be real, that maybe they were asleep, dreaming, losing their mind. But then, in the quiet, the landline phone on the wall, the one they never used, the one they didn't even know worked, began to ring. Its old metallic tone sliced through the silence like a blade. They stared at it, frozen, as the ringing slowed, each tone longer than the last. On the fifth ring, it stopped. The answering machine clicked on with a faint hiss. Then came their own voice, recorded perfectly, whispering, "I told you not to answer." The machine clicked off. The light above it blinked twice, then died. They stood there for what felt like hours, too afraid to move, too afraid to breathe. When they finally looked around, they noticed something strange. The reflection in the dark TV screen. It showed them standing still, but the reflection's head was turned, staring at something just behind them. Slowly, dread burning through their veins, they turned again, and this time they saw it. A figure, pale and wet, standing inches away. The same face from the camera, its eyes empty, mouth slightly moving, though no sound came out. The phone buzzed once more in their hand, one last message lighting up the screen. "It's your turn." The lights flickered, the figure moved closer, and the sound of static filled the room. The next morning, the apartment was quiet. The front door was still locked from the inside. The phone sat face down on the floor, its screen cracked, battery drained. The last call in the log showed one number, their own, made at exactly midnight. No one ever figured out who it connected to, or why the recording left behind had two voices breathing in unison. Some say the phone still rings at night when the power flickers and the rain returns, showing a missed call from an impossible number. Others say if you ever see your own number calling, don't answer, because once you do, it learns your voice. And then one night it'll call again, whispering from the dark, reminding you it never really hung up.